Good evening. Welcome to our Bhagavad Gita session. We are continuing. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving me your association this evening. So we'll continue with our Bhagavad Gita session. We're on chapter 9. I believe we left off at text 13. So chapter 9 is entitled Most Confidential Knowledge. And we start with a very well-known verse and a famous verse. So we'll begin with the Sanskrit. The verse reads as follows. Mahatmanas tumang partha daiving prakritim ashritaha bhajant yananya manaso gyatva bhutadnim avyayam. And it reads as follows. O son of Prita, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. So there's a word in there you're probably all very well familiar with, Mahatma. Mahatmanas, it's the first word of this particular verse. And Maha Atmana means the great souls. We're probably familiar with the word through Mahatma Gandhi, who was a historical personality in India, an austere individual, and he was well loved throughout India, especially during the time of independence. But this is not the way Bhagavad Gita describes a Mahatma, not someone who becomes popular, not someone who becomes political, but is a great soul. And Krishna says, they are not deluded, which means not deluded means not under the influence of the modes of material nature, and therefore in illusion. And then are under the protection of the divine nature. That's an interesting point. What does that mean to be under the protection of divine nature? We know that in this material world, when you are enmeshed in the material world, there's what's called the laws of karma. And karma means karma, vikarma, akarma. Karma means pious activities, vikarma means impious activities, and akarma means action that has no reaction. So it's directly in relationship, actions directly in relationship to the service of the Supreme Lord. So karma, the law of karma, all living entities are under the throes of the gunas, the modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. In the human form of life, not so with the animals. The human form of life, every action that's performed has a reaction. So that's why we are advised in Bhagavad Gita to live our life dharmically. And Krishna explains it quite extensively what it means to live dharmically. I mean, for instance, Arjuna in the first chapter, he thought it was better that he not fight, that he doesn't fight, and that would be the better thing to do, because if he fought, he had to kill his relatives, he had to kill his grandfather Bhishma Dev, he had to kill his teacher Dronacharya. All of his cousins were fighting against him, the 100 sons of King Dhritarashtra. So Shakuni, his uncle, I mean, he had so many different personalities that he grew up with and had immense respect for, but they took the side of Duryodhana in this particular major confrontation, major battle. So Arjuna thought it was better, he would be a better man if he didn't fight. He left the battlefield and went off to the to the mountains and engaged in meditation. He thought that would be the more ascetic thing to do. But Krishna informed him, you have to act according to your dharma, your duty, your responsibility. Your responsibility as a Kshatriya or a warrior is to protect the citizens. And that is part of your service to the Supreme. Rejecting your responsibility, rejecting your duty, it'd be just like, if you got married and had children and then just walked out on your children. You've taken a vow, you are now responsible for those children and their well-being. And if you ignore them or neglect them, then you are not performing your duty. It's not a good thing to do. And similarly, when we are in this world, we have our duties and we were to act responsibly. And if we do that, then it's considered a good thing. Then you're on the right track. And Lord Buddha says, if you are facing in the right direction, keep walking. So this was the position of Arjuna, and the great souls are under the protection of divine nature. So there's the laws of karma, that those who are not performing bhakti, devotional service to the Supreme, who making everything an offering, they're under that law of action and reaction. They are under the divisions of good action, bad action. It's only when you come to the point of bhakti that you learn, you are instructed and encouraged to do actions as an offering to the Supreme. When they are connected in that fashion, then they become akarmic activities, which means actions that do not incur a reaction. So, but Krishna says here, very unique, he says that the great souls, the Mahatmas, those who are not deluded, are under the protection of the divine nature. So that indicates when you engage fully in devotional service, in bhakti, then you are no longer under the auspices of the material energy that is controlled by the laws of karma, action and reaction. But you are under Krishna's divine nature. So someone in that position, that means when they act, even if something seemingly or apparently bad happens, that's still directed by Krishna. Prabhupada would say that, if someone gets a reaction, I think I said this story before, and he talked about one devotee, one disciple of Srila Prabhupada. He told Prabhupada he was opening, he was the temple president in the Boston temple, and he was opening the window. With old windows, sometimes they don't stay. So he was opening the window. And then, he took his hands away and the window came crashing down, hit him on the head. And so he went to Prabhupada. He said, that must have been my karma. And Prabhupada said, yes, it was your karma. But because you are a devotee, your karma is minimized. You should understand that your head should have been chopped off, but Krishna minimized the reaction and you only got a bump on your head. So being under the laws of divine nature means being under Krishna's direct supervision. And that's an important principle to understand. What is a Mahatma? According to the philosophy, a Mahatma, a true Mahatma, is not merely someone who is philanthropic or intellectual or mystical or socially influential. That is not the definition that Krishna is pointing to. Krishna is saying a Mahatma is surrendered to Krishna, fixed in bhakti, and under the divine energy, Daivi Prakriti. Rather than karma, he's under Daivi Prakriti, Krishna's direct guidance. The word Ananya Manasa, undivided mind. This means pure devotion, And there's another verse, Vya Visatyatmika Buddhir Ekeha Kurunandana, one pointed. So when we talk about what is a Mahatma, fixed in bhakti, one pointed, meaning that if we're not on a very advanced level, but even the level that we're on, we are trying to cultivate that one pointed mindset where we see everything in relationship to Krishna, all of our actions in relationship as an offering to the Supreme. That's the way we are cultivating or attempting to cultivate while we are in bhakti, to have that fixed position. What we do when we are on the platform of ego, what is the center of our universe if we're on the platform of ego? The center of the universe is ourselves. Everything is done for the pleasure of ourselves, to please ourselves. We are the center of the universe when we're under the influence of ahankara. Ahankara means false ego. Ego means identity. It's part of our makeup, is that we have an identity or the ability to identify as a male, as a female, as someone that's in a white body or a black body. We have the natural tendency to identify ourselves according to our material circumstance. So that is false ego. What bhakti tries to do is take us out of the center of the universe, where we are simply living a life to fulfill all of our desires, and to put the Supreme Lord Krishna in the center. And therefore, rather than serving our senses, Godas, we become Goswami, which means that our senses are controlled and our senses are utilized in the service of Krishna, in the service of the Supreme. So Krishna is the center, and not one spiritual option among many. There's not one spiritual option among many. And bhakti is our option, service to the Supreme. Because bhakti is a yoga system that specifically and one pointedly is engaged in serving the aspect of the Supreme, of the absolute reality, of the absolute truth, which is personal. And that's called bhagavad. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it says that the absolute truth has three features, and they are progressive in terms of fullness of understanding. So the first one is Brahman, understanding Brahman, and that is the spiritual energy. But that's not a complete understanding of the absolute truth, the absolute reality. It's an aspect of it, but it's not a complete understanding. And when one is fixed in Brahman, there is no understanding or acknowledgement that there is a personal side to the absolute truth, to the absolute reality. They completely ignore or deny the existence of form in terms of God or the Supreme. That what is the highest understanding is Brahman, the energy, and their meditation and everything that is done in the process, the yoga process called Jnana Yoga, is in relationship. We have renunciation, we renounce the world, in that we study sacred texts like Upanishads and the Mahavakya's of the Upanishads, the really important verses in there. And this way we're cultivating a meditation on our oneness, our connection to that spiritual energy, that we are the spiritual energy and we are not the body. So that first part is true. We are not the body. The second part of us being energy is not the complete understanding of our situation in light of the eternality of our existence. So Brahman means energy. Paramatma means that when we're embodied, we are the soul, which is activating the material energy, the body, the earth, the water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego, which has form. So our soul is activating it, but there's also something which is assisting the soul, the jivas, and that's called Paramatma. So within the heart of every living entity, there is the presence of divinity in the form of Paramatma. And that looks like the forearm Vishnu form, unless you become very, very advanced in bhakti. And when you become very, very advanced in bhakti, it means you have what they call Ishta Deva. That means your personal preference of who you want to serve. Like there is Vishnu, and you can serve Vishnu, but that's on a particular level called Aishwarya, which means you see Vishnu as God and you're the servant. Or you can serve Ram, Sita Ram, and that is serving the personal feature of God who comes down to show us what it is to live a righteous life. That's Ram's primary feature. When one serves and focuses in on Ramchandra and Sita, they see the ideal couple, and Ramchandra, the Supreme Lord, is acting as the ideal person, the ideal, and his example is to be followed. But then there's also Krishna and playful Krishna and loving Krishna. You can engage in service to Krishna exclusively and have a loving relationship. So that's what it means that when I say that the feature in your heart can be that feature which you are most attracted to and most desirous of serving. That feature that you like, for instance, in our particular line, our lineage, the Gaudiya Vaishnava lineage, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has instructed us, to chant Hare Krishna. And Hare Krishna means Radha Krishna. And my dear Radharani, my dear Krishna, please engage me in your service. So the particular mood of our lineage, our particular line of bhakti is to love and to serve Radha and Krishna. And that is our exclusive focus, our fixed focus. So that is, becomes the object of our meditation. Patanjali talks about meditation, yamas, niyamas, asana, pranayam, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. That's what Patanjali teaches, how to act within the world, notice how you're acting within yourself, performing asana to get your body into shape, performing pranayam, breath control to purify the body and to control the mind, pratyahara to withdraw the senses within so that you can go to the next step, dharana, which is concentration. And concentration means able to fix your mind on a particular object for an extended period of time. And then when that is matured, then it goes into dhyana, meditation, for a long period of time. And when that has matured, into samadhi, which means a very long period of time, you're able to fix your mind. So our meditation, the meditation of a bhakti yogi, is their Ishta Deva. And that Ishta Deva, instead of being the forearm Paramatma feature within the heart, transforms into whomever you are serving. Radha Govinda, Radha Krishna, Radha Damodar, Radha Shamsundar, the feature of Radha and Krishna, and service in a very intimate, loving way. So doing this does not produce fanaticism. It does not, in the devotee who understands the path and is rightly on that path, it does not produce a fanatic, but rather it produces a genuine devotee who exhibits the qualities of humility, the quality of compassion, the quality of steadiness, and the quality or the emotion of love in relationship to the Supreme. Bhakti is considered a higher level of yoga because the end result of practicing bhakti yoga is understanding and entering into meditation on and relationship with Bhagavan, or the personality of Godhead, and thus being able, in that understanding, in that particular evolution of consciousness, we can understand all of the aspects, all of the dimensions of the absolute truth. In other words, it's only a bhakti yogi that can understand what Brahman is and its relationship, what Paramatma is and its relationship, and Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and our relationship with that Supreme Personality of Godhead. When one enters into Brahman, there is no question of being any kind of personal feature of the absolute truth. It's only Brahman, can see nothing else. So therefore, it's considered one of the preliminary stages of understanding the absolute truth. And it's Prabhupada says, poor fund of knowledge, means it's not a complete understanding of what is God, who is God, what is that feature of the absolute truth to be known. And Paramatma, again, like if you read Patanjali's Yoga Sutras,
you have to like step up, like if something is
what happened to the gloves that were on the sink?
Yeah, they're there.
Can you pull them out?
Common sense is like, gloves are not there.
okay, someone who's there.
Like, I'm arguing with your mom because I have to.
Premarnava, is that you? Can you mute yourself, please? Thank you. So the complete understanding.
I apologize, Prabhu.
No problem. It happens. I understand. No worries. Thank you. So the complete understanding comes from bhakti. That's why Krishna says in the 6th chapter, when he's talking about meditation, dhyana yoga, he says, yoginam api sarvisham madgate nantaratmana. The topmost feature of yoga is bhakti, because bhakti gives us a complete understanding of the nature of the absolute truth and our relationship to it. So bhakti gives that vision, that perspective that the other two yoga systems do not give the respective yogi in that. Premanjana charita bhakti velochanena santak sadaiva hridayeshu velokayanti. That means when we can't see God, when we don't know God, when we're not understanding, that means because our eyes are covered. Our eyes are covered and therefore the covering prevents us from seeing in that relationship. It's taken care of. It's taken care of. Thank you. Sees and cannot see. And the analogy that Lord Brahma uses in that verse in the Brahma Samhita is having cataracts. Now, having had cataracts and having had them removed, I can relate to this analogy, this metaphor, that when you have cataracts, the longer you have them in there, the more blurry your vision becomes. Eventually, you can go blind when cataracts get really bad. So in that verse, Lord Brahma says that the cataracts of illusion that is covering our vision, preventing us from understanding who we are in relationship to the Supreme Lord. Those cataracts can be removed. You can go through a cataract operation by developing your love for the Supreme through the process of bhakti. And it removes that illusion. And then you see everything. You see Brahman, which is emanating from the personality, from the form of the Supreme Lord. That then you see, oh, Brahman is actually the aura or the light which is emanating, the energy which is emanating from the body. Then you of the Supreme. And you see Paramatma is the way, the mechanism that the Supreme Lord uses in order to permeate, to pervade this whole universe, all the living entities. That's why we say God is everywhere. And that's understanding the eminence feature of God, that I am the ability in man, I am the taste of water, I am the syllable Om. Krishna says on and on and on in the Bhagavad Gita, ways that we can see him there, because he is present there. Like in the story of Hiranyakashipu and Prahlad. You know, Prahlad, the prince son of the demoniac ruler Hiranyakashipu, he was a devotee of the Lord, and when his father, who was a demon, who's demoniac, when he says, you know, oh, so your God is everywhere, right? And Prahlad said, yes, Father. He said, oh, everywhere, right? Everywhere, yes. How about in this pillar? Yes, he's there. And when Hiranyakashipu went to smash the pillar, then the Supreme Lord came out in the form of Narasimhadev. So we can understand this principle. So the energy we see emanating off of Bhagavan, the Paramatma we see as an expansion, uh, how he permeates this universe. And then the eternal feature, the unchanging feature of the personality of Godhead. We're able to see, understand, and engage, interact with that supreme divine personality. So this is, an understanding. And then to further understand this, um, this verse establishes bhakti as being the highest path, but it also teaches that karma purifies slowly, that jnana, karma yoga, purifies slowly, because when you're performing karma yoga, you still have desires you want fulfilled, but slowly by slowly, through the ritual, through sacrifice, etc., you get purified from that, and you start to detach yourself from those desires. Jnana yoga removes ignorance. There's knowledge in jnana. In karma yoga, there's action. In Jnana Yoga, there's knowledge, and knowledge removes that ignorance. But um, bhakti does purify like karma, but rapidly, not slowly or gradually. Bhakti does dispel ignorance. The difference is bhakti directly awakens your love for the Supreme, your love of God. Whereas the other two are not capable of doing that. They're not in the position of doing that. Only bhakti will reveal the personal feature of the absolute truth, known as Bhagavan. Bhagya, the opulences, Van in form. So that supreme person as not being like us in a material form. It does not mean that form is material, because we have that experience. If God is everything, then he must be infinite and he must be finite. He must have an impersonal, energetic feature, but he must also have a personal feature. Because if he doesn't have that, then he's missing something. That means that we have something that he doesn't have or he can't have. So that wouldn't accurately, if you say that only the spiritual energy, Brahman, exists, nothing else, then that would not accurately define God as being everything, because we would have something that God does not have. We have form, we have loving relationships, and form is important to us, our bodily feature, and our loving relationships that we have with our beloved. That's very important and a very powerful source of energizing us, right? When we're in a loving relationship, we're energized by that loving relationship. We're energized by love. That's because we're loving individuals. So bhakti gives us the ability to enter in the most energized relationship. So energized that we experience unlimited degrees of bliss by our interaction with the Supreme Lord. Unlimited degrees of bliss. We're not just talking about happiness. We're not talking about being relieved from ignorance and therefore, being content, being pure, solely satisfied, being happy. Beyond that, the bliss of love, the spark of fire of love and loving relationship, that directly comes by the process of bhakti yoga. We directly can engage and awaken that loving relationship. So that was 9:13. Let's move on to 9:14. As 9:13 was a very important verse, this is a very pivotal verse here in the 14th chapter, and actually for the whole Bhakti Yoga tradition. I'll read the Sanskrit. It sounds really nice, and you'll recognize some words in there too. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantas cha dridha brataha namas yantas chamam bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. So what is Krishna saying here? Satatam, always chanting my glories in kirtan japa. That is why in our lineage of bhakti, there's such a heavy emphasis on japa, which is the meditation on the names of God, and kirtan, which is the singing with melody and rhythm, the names of God, because this is the foundation. Bhagavad Gita is the foundation of what we are practicing. So what does Krishna say? Always chanting my glories. And what did Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu say? Chant always, always chant. And what's that verse in the Lord Chaitanya's verse? I can't remember it right now. Memory, senior moment. Yeah, I'll have to think of it later. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination. So determination must be there. Two necessary ingredients when you're starting the practice of bhakti. You know what they are? Sincerity and determination. Rupa Goswami says that sincerity is more important than knowledge and renunciation. Sincerity means honesty. When the Romans were dealing in trade with the Greeks had a very high quality marble. White marble, pure white marble is very valuable even today. If you want to buy marble and it's pure white without any blemishes or defects, it's expensive. So the Romans were buying their white marble from the Greeks, and the Greeks learned a technique of covering up blemishes, they would use wax. And they would put wax, like if something was slightly cracked, they would fill it with hot wax, and when it dried, it was white and it looked like, it didn't have blemishes. So the Romans were paying top dollar, and they weren't getting exactly what they were paying for until they discovered what was happening. And then they went to the Greeks and they said, sinceros, sinceros, without any faults, without any blemishes. And when a merchant in Rome was advertising this pure white marble, they would put the sign in there, sinceros, sinceros, no wax, no cheating. So sincerity means, the root word is that, but sincerity evolved to mean honesty, being an honest person. And I've seen, in my sojourn on the path of bhakti, I've seen that people who are honest with themselves make very rapid advancement in bhakti. People who are not, people who are lying to themselves and then trying to promote that deception upon others, if they happen to come upon bhakti and try to perform it, then they'll see bhakti more as a means to become famous. And they'll equate, especially within an institutional environment, how high I rise up in the institutional management structure as a sign of my advancement, when that's not the case. A sign of advancement is when we develop these qualities of honesty, compassion, kindness, mercy. When those qualities, by the touch of the Supreme, by the purification of the process, they begin to manifest within the heart of someone who is sincere in making advancement. So sincerity is a very important component for advancing in bhakti yoga, and determination. Determination means there are going to be so many obstacles while you're practicing, especially when you begin. There's a stage, it's called Anishtita Bhakti. And Anishtita Bhakti has different levels. Anishtita Bhakti means not fixed in your devotional service. Means you're still operating on a very, shaky, Komala Bhakti. Komala Bhakti means shaky bhakti. You're operating on a very shaky platform. You really you're not on the platform where you're honest with yourself. In the beginning of that Komala Bhakti, or the Anishtita Bhakti stage, you're very enthusiastic. Wow, this is the best thing I've ever seen since sliced bread. You're really enthusiastic and you're really eager to do things. You want to go, chant, and you want to go and associate. You want to do a lot of things, and you have a lot of enthusiasm. But that's called um, the utsaha mai. Utsaha means enthusiasm. Mai means false. That it's not really true, heartfelt enthusiasm. It's a kind of a false enthusiasm, which is generated by doing something new and exciting. But then, so at that point, you'll do anything. Oh, yes, Prabhu, I'll serve you. You do anything. But then as you progress in bhakti and the other stages of anishtita bhakti, unsteady devotional service, on not fixed bhakti yoga, you begin to go through things like, now I want to do bhakti. I just want to do things that I like to do. And I'm still offering to God. in the initial stages, you'll do anything. Yes, I'll wash pots and I'll go out and Harinam and I'll chant and I'll do so many things. But then as you're going on and as the years pass, no, that's really, I really don't want to wash pots today, you know. And you start picking between what things you like to do, what things you don't like to do. And then there's a stage that you enter into where you are, you know, bhakti means control of the senses. Any yoga system really means to control the senses and the mind. Nowadays, in commercial yoga, there's not so much of an emphasis on that. It's more like hippieism, where you know you just do whatever you want to do, and everything is love and wonderful and this and that. And but in real yoga, the yoga system, then the point of the yoga system, the initial point of the yoga system, is to control the mind, control the senses. So there's a stage in anishtita bhakti, or unsteady devotional service, or neophyte bhakti yoga, where your senses are starting to really give you a hard time. They're really starting to crave things that you're staying away from, and there's that tug of war. And another thing that happens in another stage in this anishtata, or unsteady, not fixed bhakti, is when sometimes you really want to be renounced. You know, you really want to give up everything, and then other times you are want to enjoy. It's called Bhoga Tyaga. I renounce, I enjoy. I enjoy, I renounce. And you go back and forth like that. And then there's a stage of this unsteady devotional service when you think you're advanced. Oh, I'm an advanced devotee. And you expect to be respected and recognized as an advanced devotee. That's also within the category of unsteady devotional service. So this determination to stay on the path and to understand the path and to be honest about your interaction. Most people like to do some things, bhakti's cool, etc., but the commitment to bhakti, you know, any love relationship, there is commitment. And in bhakti, if you want to enter into a loving relationship with the Supreme and experience the bliss of that love exchange, there has to be commitment. There's no getting around it. It's not like smorgasbord, where I'll do a little of this, I'll do a little of that, etc., etc. In Bhakti Yoga, there's a determination of Vyav Satyatmika Buddhi, or Ekeha Kurunandana, one-pointedness, where you want to please your beloved. It's called selfless love. And we see good parents, good spouses and relationships, they do things to please others. You know, the children. You know, sometimes my son says, you know, take me to the soccer field. Oh, I don't want to go to the soccer field. You got to sit and watch, and he practices for 3 hours. So it's not just a 15 minutes. It's a major commitment, but he wants to do it. So as a father, I feel obligated, and I want to. I want to see him happy. It may not be how I want to spend those 3 hours, but it is certainly the way he wants to do it. So in order to, show my love for him, I will do things that maybe necessarily I wouldn't want to do. That this is the kind of mood a parent has. Parent makes all kinds of sacrifices. There was a story about these parents, husband and wife. They had a child who had cerebral palsy, and they lived in California, and they were going to take a train to visit their relatives. in, I think on the East Coast or Midwest, I forget exactly where. It was actually, this is an actual occurrence. It was in the news some years back, but and what happened was the train went off the tracks and went into the water. The cars went into the water. So what happened was um, the water started pouring in, and of course the child, um, having cerebral palsy, couldn't do much for themselves. So what the parents did was they, kicked out the window, and they took their child and they pushed their child out the window, out of the train, and the child rose to the surface and was saved. But the parents, in doing that, drowned. They couldn't, it took all of their effort to do that because their child didn't have much range of motion. So, and by the time they finally got their child through, both parents had their lungs full. So we see when love is there, there's commitment, there's selflessness, and this is what is bhakti. And so when Krishna says, always chanting my glories, well, that you need to be committed to do that, or to at least regularly chant. Like when you become serious in the path of bhakti, and then you want initiation from a qualified teacher, qualified guru, bona fide guru, then what's the first thing the teacher asks of you? You got to make a commitment. You got to make a commitment to chant regularly every day. 16 rounds, 2 hours. There's commitment involved. And by virtue of that commitment, you develop a wonderful relationship, a loving relationship with your guru, and the guru trains you about what is a loving, how to achieve, how to accomplish cleansing the heart and developing your loving relationship with the Supreme. So this is important. Satatam kirtayanto means always chanting. And this is the theological basis for our bhakti yoga lineage. Nama Sankirtan, going and chanting with others. Japa, the personal meditation. Congregational chanting, getting together like we do, and like we'll be having on June 7th at my house. For those of you who are in the area, please come. June 7th, we'll do congregational chanting, and we will try to remind each other about Krishna by hearing some katha, some topics about that, and also by chanting together. So that's why in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he synthesized the process that we should be following, he says the holy names, the chanting, is the primary spiritual process. The most important thing in one's development of their bhakti and progress in bhakti is to focus on your chanting. I remember when I first got into Krishna consciousness in 1972, I had been chanting, I had been doing TN meditation for about 2 years, since like 1970. I paid $35 at the time. I think now it's something like $3,000. And, I did the meditation a couple times a day. They gave me a one-word mantra to chant. And then my interest in bhakti deepened because I read Bhagavad Gita, and I started to read Bhagavad Gita, and then I got A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, and everywhere he mentions chanting of Hare Krishna. So what I did was I was doing my TM, and then I would chant Hare Krishna. And then as time wore on, and it wasn't a lot of time, but very quickly, I found myself chanting the TM meditation less, doing it less, and chanting more. And eventually I gave that up completely, and I started chanting actual rounds on a daily basis. So this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave us and indicated that if you want to make rapid advancement in the process of bhakti yoga, you want to understand your loving relationship with the Supreme, then this satatam kirtayantamam, always chant. This verse is seen as the prophecy for the Gaudiya Vaishnava, the Bhakti Yoga, Radha Krishna Bhakti Yoga lineage that we are a part of today. That chanting Hare Krishna mantra in kirtan and in japa and absorption in your devotion to the Supreme, seeing everything in relationship to the Supreme. Devotees. So therefore, when one wants to make advancement, they engage in constant glorification. They engage with determination. Krishna is asking that. They humility. Krishna says in this verse, offering obeisances. That means humbling oneself. So a symptom of humility is to humble oneself, offering obeisances, and continuous yukta, continuous union, nitya yukta, always connected, learning the process in such a way and implementing the process in such a way that we're always connected to Krishna. So bhakti is not merely ritual. Bhakti is a state of consciousness. And that's what separates bhakti from karma yoga, for instance, because karma yoga sounds very similar. Act in such a way that you're glorifying the Supreme. But in bhakti yoga, it becomes, in karma yoga, there's ritual. In bhakti yoga, it's the cultivation of a state of consciousness by which you can connect nitya yukta. You can eternally connect yourself to the Supreme Lord by your practice of bhakti. So that's verse 14. Very important verse. We can go on for a longer period of time for that, but let's continue. Let's continue moving on in the Bhagavad Gita. And now we're on 15. And text 15 reads, Jnana Yajnana Chapyanye Yajanto Mangupasate Ekatvena Pratakritvena Bahuda Vishvato Mukam. So that reads, others who engage in sacrifice by the cultivation of knowledge, who worship the Supreme Lord as the one without a second, as diverse in many and in the universal form. So this is a very nice description, right? Krishna acknowledges that there are different approaches we discussed in personal realization, the worship of the universal form or the universal feature of the Supreme, and philosophical contemplation. So Krishna mentioned these things in Bhagavad Gita, but Gaudiya commentators like Prabhupada and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Baladev Vidyabhushan, they explain that these are incomplete compared to pure bhakti. Pure bhakti is Shuddha bhakti. Shuddha means pure. So pure bhakti means that there is a contemplation, a worship, humility, always chanting, always being connected. This is bhakti. So why is bhakti supreme? Why is bhakti considered top? Knowledge alone, as in Jnana Yoga, may produce detachment, liberation from samsara, the wheel of birth, death, and rebirth, and philosophical clarity. We may be able to understand the nature of Prakriti. What is Prakriti? What is Purush? What is this material energy? What is the spiritual energy? But bhakti produces relationship. Bhakti is relational absorption, whereas the other yoga systems are not so much concerned with that. This bhakti is concerned with relational absorption, how we can develop or cultivate our relationship, how when that relationship becomes real, becomes authentic, how it becomes more and more intimate. And then we begin in this relationship to experience what is called rasa. And rasa is that taste, one way that is described when you have a loving exchange, what you experience in that loving exchange, the bliss of that loving exchange, the absorption of that loving exchange is like a taste of which there is no other. We are looking in this world for relationship. Why are pets so popular? Even I have a dog out there. And my dog is like super affectionate. And so we have a bond, we have a relationship, right? Because every aspect, every part of our fiber wants to experience relationship that is pleasing, relationship that's invigorating, relationship which is rewarding. Relationship is where you can give, because giving is a much higher, much higher experience than taking. They've done, psychological studies, research in this regard, where they concluded that giving is a better feeling than actually receiving. So we want to give ourselves. We want to give ourselves in love. And this is what bhakti is. We don't just want clarity or knowledge or even liberation. That's not our desire. Our desire is love, loving relationship, that exchange, that selflessness, that higher sense of the self, which is selflessness. That is what bhakti is. So let us go from that to, okay, that was 14. Let's go, no, was that 14? No, that was 15. Let's go to verse 16. How does 16 read? We only have a few minutes here. But it is I who am the ritual, I the sacrifice, the offering to the ancestors, the healing herb, the transcendental chant. I am the butter and the fire and the offering. So Krishna is here. He's beginning 16, 17, 18, 19. He is telling us how we can understand him. So what does he say? Again, I am the father of the universe, the mother, the support, and the grandsire. I am the object of knowledge, the purifier, and the syllable Om. I am also the Rig, the Sama, and the Yajurvedas. I am the goal, the sustainer, the master, the witness, the abode, the refuge, and the most dear friend. I am the creation and the annihilation, the basis of everything, the resting place, and the eternal seed. And then the concluding verse in this stream of thought that Krishna gives, O Arjuna, I give heat and I withhold and send forth the rain. I am immortality and I am also death personified. Both spirit and matter are in me. So Krishna, in these series of verses, he is explaining, his position, how he is present, what he is in relationship to us and to this world. And it's a good meditation. It's a very solid meditation to get involved in. So we'll stop here. We'll begin with 20 at the beginning of next week's class. And I open up the floor to you wonderful people. I'm always getting a few wonderful questions, very keen observation. So lay it on me, folks. What would you like to say? Who would like to speak up? Anyone there? Any takeaway points that was made? Anything that particularly struck you?
Lakshmi Shinga Prabhu.
Yes, is that Premarnava?
Yeah, apologize about my arguing in the kitchen. Everybody
Hey, we all
confused.
are. Hey, that's family life. Welcome to family life.
So, yeah, a couple things that, yeah, you say you have to be sincere. Sincere.
Right.
That's me right there. Like, yeah,
Sinceros.
sincero.
Don't put the wax on the marble.
Yeah,
Be honest.
en español is sincero also. Sincero.
Sincero. Mhm.
Sincero.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I noticed you quote a lot of the that sage Patanjali.
Mm.
I wonder how you got interested in because you know, like every class pretty much you talk about Patanjali and
Yeah,
how
because
you have benefited by
yeah,
analyzing.
yes, by studying Patanjali, number one, I hesitated because I saw in other Yoga Sutras there's a lot of speculation, but Patanjali is important in terms of the psychology of yoga. Bhagavad Gita is rich not only in psychology of yoga, but also in the philosophy behind yoga. So, what really got me into Yoga Sutras and Patanjali was two things. Number one, I was teaching in a lot of yoga studios. You
Right?
know, I was teaching the psychology and philosophy of yoga. I was invited by yoga studio owners when they were having yoga teaching seminar training to come in and teach their students the philosophy and psychology of yoga. So in order to do that, I felt it was a good thing to do is to study Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. But the thing that really pushed me over the edge in studying, making an intense study of Yoga Sutras, was the fact that my good friend, our good friend, Adwaita, Dr. Edwin Bryant, came out with a translation that was the most authorized and comprehensive study. So when those two things happened in my life, when Adwaita or Dr. Edwin Bryant produced that work, I read it. He gave it to me as a gift, and I read it, and I was amazed because it helped to clarify certain points about our tradition of bhakti yoga, our style of meditation, etc. So, and it helped me to explain to others, by reading that. So, it's quite Advaita, Dr. Edwin Bryant's version of the Yoga Sutras is quite a journey. It really, really is, and that's why I get into it. And you see, when I do use it, it's to explain a point about bhakti or to clarify a philosophical point. That I think there's a lot of good insight in there in the Yoga Sutras that can help us as bhakti yoga practitioners who do regular meditation, on the holy names of Krishna, on the Maha Mantra. So that's how I got into it. Yeah. And I find myself, when I'm explaining to people, particularly new people, it to be a very helpful resource in explaining a particular point. Like, for instance, everyone knows that, meditation is to make your mind peaceful. And Patanjali says, Yogas Chitta Britti Narodaha. that your mind has to be calm, and that's yoga. He defines yoga as a calm mind. Now, in bhakti, yeah, we get a calm mind, but it's kind of a secondary effect of chanting Hare Krishna. The primary effect is that we're developing a loving relationship. But on the way to the development of that loving relationship, we get a peaceful mind, we get a purified heart, we get a sattvic mind. There's like all of these secondary effects that are so beneficial to us and to our yoga practice. But the emphasis of bhakti is the love relationship. It's not so much the way Patanjali does it in the Ashtanga process or the Kriya Yoga process. The emphasis is on chanting. And that verse, Satatam Kirtayantamam, the emphasis is on chanting. And that, particularly in this day and age, because there's a verse in the Bhagavatam which says, even though the age of Kali Yuga, which we're in right now, is very difficult to practice spirituality, there is one redeeming quality, and that is you can chant japa, you can chant the holy names of the Lord and make, full advancement. So does that answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
You're welcome. Thank you
And
for
a quick point was when you were saying of Utsahamai,
yeah.
that enthusiasm that you have. Uh, One time, Bhakti Chittani Swami had been giving a seminar on that book,
Mhm.
Madhurya Kandambini,
Mhm.
and he gave the example of Utsahamai is like that the devotee is wearing George Harrison property in England. And some
Oh yeah.
devotees said, yeah, you know that example. I don't know if you probably heard that. And so then one devotee saw George Harrison and he just dropped and pay obeisance right in the middle of a pond. Like, so very enthusiastic. And anyway,
Yeah, and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in that book, he says it's like when you first go to school. Like you remember when you first went to college, right? The first semester, it's like you're so fired up, I'm going to conquer the world. I'm going to get this knowledge, and I'm going to be a psychologist, or I'm going to be a teacher, or I'm going to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. You have that like enthusiasm. But then as the reality of university and university life sets in, then that enthusiasm is not so keen by your sophomore year, your junior year, and what to speak of your senior year. Then you're like, I can't wait to get out of here. I want to finish and go do my thing. So that's the Vishwanath Chakravarti's Thakur's description of Utsahamai, that you just, when you start something, you got all this enthusiasm, right? But it's not real because you really don't know what you're getting yourself into. It's just the concept, the idea, oh, I'm going to be a doctor. But then when the reality sets in of what it takes to be a doctor, I mean, I saw my wife go through residency and it was like, 15 hours in a hospital. She was so busy and so tired. She didn't have an opportunity to brush her hair. And so her hair became like dreadlocks. I've never seen an Asian with dreadlocks, and my wife had dreadlocks because she was so busy, hours and hours in that hospital, and sometimes she'd be the only doctor in the whole hospital, and the hospital was like 5 or 6 floors, and all over the hospital. Dr. Puglisi, floor 5, ICU. Dr. Puglisi, floor 1, emergency. And she'd just be running around. She'd come home, she'd fall on the bed, go to sleep. Next morning, same thing. So, when that reality hits of what it takes to be a doctor or a lawyer, you get your MBA or whatever you're striving for, then it's hard to retain your enthusiasm. You really, really, really have to be Dridha vrata. You have to be determined. That determination needs to be there. So when you practice bhakti, it's nice. We chant Hare Krishna. We play the instruments, but then every day you get up. Every day we get up 5 o'clock in the morning, and we get up, we shower, and we chant. And every day, whether you're sick or not, every day you have that commitment to do that. So you really need dridha vrata. You really need that kind of determination to make advancement in bhakti. In fact, in anything, if you want to be good in anything, you really have to have that intense degree of determination. Otherwise, you don't last. You get tested, and then you just say, "Oh, I can't do this anymore. It's too much." So Krishna wants us not to say that. Krishna wants us to be determined and to come to him and to enjoy our rightful place in a totally blissful, spiritual, loving environment. Any other question or comment or any takeaway, any observations that you have? Thank you, Premarnava, for that.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Jai Ravi Haribo.
Haribol, my room is not well lit, and we have Zoya's family visiting us. So I'm in a small room. But the topics covered, going back chronologically backwards, like determination and the glorification of bhakti and why bhakti and devotional service um, fulfills everything, and why other processes are little come short. I recall a very interesting conversation Vaishik Prabhuji gave about similar subject, but the audience was Silicon Valley. Our in the Silicon Valley, the audience were people from Apple and Google and this Facebook, and the common theme was they were successful, and the common theme was growth. Everyone knew the determination. They were very successful in their profession. Everyone knew the common vocabulary of growth. There is a we grow. We have to grow every few weeks, few months, few years. Where we are going. Otherwise, they won't be successful. So that was established very well. The growth. So Vaishik Prabhuji used this so elegantly that I started with a question or something I forgot, where he mentioned that Prabhupada was asked this question: "Have you ever seen Krishna?" And his answer was that you need qualification, you need to be there, and ultimately was that you want to be seen, you don't want to see. You want to be at a state where Krishna wants to see you. You don't go out of your. So he was just setting a very nice stage that, and he mentioned the same thing about other processes like knowledge, where he gave example of Adiguru Shankaracharya saying effulgence, beyond that effulgence, I want to see that beautiful face. Where is the source of effulgence? So that there's a more beyond the path of knowledge. There is more growth is there. There is not then the growth is still there. That it's not there yet. And he was talking about that the no not needing anything by Buddhism and all, was you'll see it's still a little bit self-centered, and not many people can do it by general mass. He's still saying that devotion is something can be practiced by all, and it's very natural, as you mentioned. He gave much better. I'm just not doing any paraphrasing and doing things, but just trying to convey the gist, that how he elegantly used growth as a leverage, which everyone knew, and is a common vocabulary and experience, where people, when they say growth, they're not talking about growing a limb or arm. Growing is internal with some sincerity, determination. They gain some knowledge. They have new perception based on that, and they're able to grow. So in that path, you get at the very end, where you have growth is so complete that you see into the personal form. His journey was elegant, very beautiful. But he also answered one very elegant, beautiful question about pecking order when he mentioned that Prabhupada, when came to San Francisco, he used to stay in an apartment where two Prabhujis used to stay, Jayananda and I forgot another one. And one of them was a taxi driver. And he would give his place, and Prabhupada would come, and his place will be completely packed, and there will be people would want to sit close to Prabhupada, and how Prabhupada will ignore everything and spot Jananda in his uh, not clean clothes because he's a taxi driver. His clothes are not clean. He would be sitting in the corner, but Prabhupada would immediately see him. So the way he was saying that Prabhupada, how elegantly solved this organization problem whenever human organized, there is a pecking order emerge. People try to rise to the top. It's just built into one genetics through parampara system, through the service that, okay, I'm doing it for some my spiritual master. There's nothing for me. I'm just following that. So this is the beauty of ISKCON. You were saying that, which is such a beautiful thing. What other organizations struggle, where they don't know how to solve this pecking order problem because someone else become important in between. And but Prabhupada, throughout his consistency, gave credit to his spiritual master, gave credit to everything else, and to be seen by God, seen by Krishna, not to see Krishna, just do your thing. So I was the most mesmerizing thing he answered for like 2 hours or something, but it was stayed with me, and I just wanted to share those experience here.
Thank you. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a story. Prabhupada's spiritual master was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And one time he went into the temple. Now, he didn't have good vision and he needed glasses and he wore glasses because his eyesight was not very good. So he came into the temple and he stayed in the back of the temple. And his disciples were wondering why he wasn't going up. You know, he's an exalted spiritual master, pure devotee of the Lord. But he stayed in the back of the temple and he took off his glasses. Now um, I can't read without my glasses. I really need them. So I blurred everything now. But Bhaktisiddhanta took off his glasses and he was standing there in the back. And so his disciples were a little bewildered. They were thinking, you know, why is Guru Maharaj staying back there without his glasses? He probably can't even see the deity. So they asked him, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's answer was, I have not come to see Krishna. I've come to be seen by Krishna. So this is an important concept in bhakti, that we are concerned about pleasing Krishna. And when you please Krishna, Krishna sees you. He really sees you better than anyone else. That's why he says in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhoktaram Jagnatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Sadvabhutanam. I'm your best friend. I'm seated in your heart. I'm your best friend. Because Krishna, when someone serves you, right? Let's say you come into somebody's house, and in many cultures, whether it's from India or South America or Kazakhstan, in Kazakhstan, you go into a household, they have fruits and nuts and dates and desserts and tea, everything. It's just part of civilization, part of being cultured, that you greet your guests nicely, and you remember that. Any household that I've gone into where they've treated me like with that level of affection and respect, you never forget that. It's just wonderful to be a recipient of that kind of exchange. So this is, the mood of the devotee is that I'm not going to become. I want to become a pure devotee, and Krishna, Krishna's going to stand before me and that type of thing. No, we just want to be seen. We want to act in a humble way, with kindness and compassion and mercy, and act with all humility, this tolerance, Trinadapi, that's the verse I was looking for. Trinadapi sunichena, todoropi sahishnana, amanida manidena, kirtanaya sadahari. That's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructs us. Be humble, humbler than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, to be devoid of wanting to be recognized for what you're doing, and offer all respects. Respect means the root of respect, respect. Spect means spectacles, spectacular. Spect means to see, and means again. So respect means to look again. Sometimes we don't look at people. We're not in the moment. We don't consider who they are. My world is my head, my mind, and my world is first and foremost. And, we don't show proper respect to people, because proper respect, looking again, means you can see the good qualities in people. And being lazy or not at all, you don't see those good qualities. You don't understand. People will focus in on a mistake they made, and that's their light. That's how they describe that person, by their mistake. When that person is so much more, and is doing so much more, and has done so much more. But then a person with a negative mentality will see that person. Oh, this person, 13, 14, 15 years ago made a mistake, and I'm always going to remember it. And that's going to be the way I see that person. That's sad. And that's unfortunate, because the mood of a Vaishnava, the mood of a devotee, is that we see the good in everyone. We try not to focus in on faults. We do not define people. Everybody makes a mistake. Everybody, there's some mistake in all of us, in all of our lifestyles. We have made errors. That's what it means to be a conditioned soul. It means that you'll make errors in your life. But what is really the point to note is, even if a person makes a mistake, have they rectified that mistake? And there's a quote that says, the remedy for bad action in the past is good action in the present. That's the remedy. So if a person is acting in a noble, devotional way, that's what should be seen. Every saint was a sinner, and every saint could have been a sinner. Every sinner could be a saint. That's the way we see. And it's unfortunate, especially, I've seen people practicing devotional service for years and years and years, and they get into a fault-finding mentality. Very sad. Okay, I've gone on long enough. Thank you very much for your association tonight, and for the inspiration that you provide me by you being there and asking nice questions and sharing nice observations and stories. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much. You have a happy, healthy, and holy week. And I hope to see you next Tuesday, same time, same station.
Thank you. Thank you for your association, Prabhu. So thanks
Thank you.
for changing all the Prabhupada disciples, Sri Hari, and
Thank you so much.
Good
Hare
night.
Krishna.
Hey,
Everyone.
Premanava, will you be at the New York Rath Yatra?
yes, I'll be there.
I'll see you there.
Sure.
Okay, I'll be there.
Great. Yeah, I'll see you there.
Okay, great. All right, everyone. Good night.